Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. Before we get into the show, is everybody ready for Christmas? I guess I am. It's been sneaking up on me, but I guess I'm ready. I know I'm ready to start the new year, start the new session. I know a lot of you out in the listening audience are anxious to see how the new year turns out. But I was just curious. I know this is going to be the last show before Christmas, and everybody I'm hoping is getting into the Christmas spirit, looking for some holiday cheer. But I know the weather is going to be seasonable, let's call it that. So hopefully all of you out there in the listening audience have a safe and happy and Merry Christmas. But I just wanted to cover that because I get so caught up in trying to deal with a lot of what's going on out there in not just in Vermont politics, but national stuff that affects what goes on in Vermont as well. So I always have to remind myself to just remember that there's other things going on. So, but I just wanted, there's a number of things I want to cover. As usual, there's way more issues than there is time. So one of the things, somebody sent me a link to a local newscast that apparently the Attorney General thinks that harm reduction is saving Vermont money. It may be saving the state money, but it's definitely costing the residents and taxpayers money, I think. I wonder what you think. Just in the cost of lack of peace of mind, lack of safety in small towns and big towns. How many of you, and we're probably going to continue to cover this because it's a constant issue. Like I've said before, I think public safety is going to overshadow all of the other issues. And there are 3 or 4 top issues: public safety, taxation with respect to property taxes, education taxes, affordability in general. With the budget crunch we have, our transportation budget is less than it should be with respect to keeping our roads up. So there's a lot of issues, and I think public safety is going to continue to bump up against everything else that wants to be the top issue. So the issue for me is, I believe when you take into consideration all of the harm reduction and the court diversion stuff that is supposed to make the court schedule or ease the court schedule, is only making everyday Vermonters' lives more difficult. What is the cost in lost property, damaged property? I know there was an instance, I won't get deep into it, but one construction site had $2,500 worth of tools stolen. $2,500. Now, was that savings to the state taken into consideration with the Attorney General's statement? I'll bet not. You know, I think the Attorney General, like another Attorney General out west, made a statement about how Hyundai and Kia should be sued because their cars are too easy to steal. How ridiculous is that? How ridiculous is that? Locks are made for honest people, ladies and gentlemen. How many of you have a door, an exterior door to your home that's got a lock and a deadbolt in it, but it also has a glass panel in it? Anybody who's desperate enough to get through that door is going to break the glass to unlock the door, correct? How many of you have cars that have glass in them? So some of these comments that are made are absolutely ridiculous in my personal opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Locks are made for honest people. Cars are too easy to steal. We had a UVM professor, I believe it was UVM, who made the statement that everybody does it. You know what that UVM professor was talking about? Shoplifting. How many of you, we've talked about this before on the show, how many of you in my listening audience think shoplifting is okay and everybody, because somebody else did it, it's okay for you to do it? That's insane, in my personal opinion. What do you think? So I just wanted to cover a little bit of that. And, the harm reduction, it's probably a good segue into an article I found here. Vermont Daily Chronicle, dated December 19, Burlington safe injection site to launch without supervised drug use. Well, the supervised drug use would have been the first state supervised location for the injection of illegal drugs. It would have been the first. So this, I'm glad that this supervised drug use idea is off the table. Let's see, this is by Guy Page. Burlington's planned overdose prevention center will move forward without supervised consumption of illegal drugs in its initial phase, according to a status update circulated this week by, this is a great title, Building Burlington's Future, a local advocacy group that has been meeting with city and state officials. Building Burlington's Future. I don't know what this group is, but if we're talking about advocating for a quote-unquote safe injection site, I'm going to call it breaking Burlington's future, busting Burlington's future. Let's see, $1.1 million in state funding for the pilot safe injection site program was approved by the 2024 Vermont legislature over the veto of Governor Phil Scott. Now, we've covered people experiencing progressive policies. That was coined by Rob Roper in one of the articles that I covered on this show. This is one of those progressive policies that hardworking, tax-paying property owners and residents, whether you live here in a rental property or you own, people experiencing progressive policies. In a lengthy December 20 email to supporters, BBF said the city has concluded that allowing on-site supervised consumption of controlled substances would require more preparation, staffing capacity, and community engagement than is currently feasible. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things they left out here is what will it do with respect to federal law? And will the state of Vermont be tangled up in another federal lawsuit? As a result, supervised drug use will not be part of the center's first phase. Well, that's a very good thing for the neighborhood wherever this place will be sited. Instead, the initial focus will be on treatment, stabilization, and connecting people struggling with substance use disorder to care and recovery services. We already have these services available. There are nonprofits, there are already organizations being run, trying to expand. I attended one opening at a really nice place right here in Barre. Why are we not looking to take places that are already open and bolster them and give them more support instead of finding another one? First of all, and this is just in my short education with respect to recovery, if you are someone who has an addiction issue and you're in Burlington, the first thing you need to do is get the hell out of Burlington, because you have people in Burlington who you know who are probably contributing to your addiction problem. So you need to get away from them. So that's probably not the place you need to be going anyway. Let's see. The city has determined that supervised consumption isn't part of the first phase of the project, BBF wrote, describing the approach as a way to move forward with services that can be implemented more quickly while broader questions remain unresolved. And I want to, for all of my listeners, just to give an idea, there's a picture on the front of this article, and this is, I believe, from a New York City. It says from a New York City safe injection site. And there was a New York Post article, I believe, that we referred to on this show a couple months back, where the community where this site is is begging for it to be closed down because of the damage it's done to the community. But one of the, there's something that's in English and in Spanish on the wall in this site, and it says, "This site saves lives." I disagree with that statement vehemently, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to save lives, you get people into recovery. You make it blatantly clear to anybody suffering from the addiction you're trying to help them with that if they don't break their addiction, if they don't find recovery instead of a safe injection site and keep pumping that junk into their veins, there's only one end. There is only one end. Let's see. BFF said it has spent recent weeks meeting with the mayor's office and governor's team, sharing observations from the ground and urging closer alignment between city and state strategies. The group pointed to recent developments such as the launch of the Accountability Court and improved coordination among local and state partners as signs that collaboration is beginning to take shape. I've got another question for you, ladies and gentlemen. How about taking $1.1 million and putting it into the public safety budget so that VSP can expand the number of officers on patrol? How about that? Wouldn't that be lovely? How many people in your small town would love to see more VSP around in their rural neighborhood? Because the crime due to drug addiction is everywhere. It's everywhere. Let's see. While supervised consumption is off the table for now, hopefully permanently, other major decisions remain unresolved. The location of the Overdose Prevention Center has not yet been announced, and the full range of services it may eventually offer is still under discussion. The siting, I guess, ladies and gentlemen, is probably going to be the hardest part. Probably going to be the hardest part, because any neighborhood that this injection site shows up in is going to suffer with the restrictions that there are in law enforcement, and the availability of this even to minors is going to cause issues in the neighborhood, and it's going to cause less peace of mind, and it's going to cause people to feel less safe anywhere in the vicinity of this site. In my personal opinion, BBF said that city plans additional opportunities for public engagement as details are finalized, and encourage residents to follow city updates or contact city staff for more information. The group characterized its role as pushing for practical steps that make our community safer. Less drug addiction will make our community safer, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think about that? More law enforcement, more accountability. What did they call it? The Accountability Court. How about we double the size of the Accountability Court and make the sentences or the verdicts that come out of that court actually have teeth? How many lawmakers and people on your planning commissions always talk about having laws that have teeth? What about teeth with respect to these? Let's see. City officials have not yet released a formal timeline for opening the center, but BBF's update signals that Burlington intends to proceed with a model centered on treatment and connections to care without supervised drug consumption, at least in its opening phase. I got another question for you. What about the toll that all of these free, clean needles that are passed out are taking on the environment? Why do we not talk about that? Why do we not talk about that? If somebody is recovery, what about somebody being told, go pick some of the needles? Have you ever dropped one of those because you didn't care about it? Part of your recovery needs to be accountability. Try to find places and go pick up those dirty needles that you left for somebody's child or somebody's dog to step on, because it's dangerous. If it wasn't dangerous, we wouldn't have red containers for medical staff to be throwing in because they were labeled biohazard, correct? So why are we not making a big deal about the 500,000 needles that were not exchanged or returned when they were given clean needles? And that's from a forum I went to not too long ago right up in Burlington. So unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we've already burned through one segment in Right Side Up, so we've got to pay some bills. But we will return and continue this discussion and others as soon as we're done paying some bills. You're listening to Right Side Up. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. I want to just cover a little bit more, talk a little bit more about the article we were talking about with this so-called safe injection site. And in my personal opinion, there's nothing safe about it. You really should check it out. Like I said, it's Vermont Daily Chronicle, dated December 19th. Burlington safe injection site to launch without supervised drug use. Look at the comments. The last time I checked, there were 29 comments. There are a lot of you out there who obviously know what common sense is, because you can get a really good sense of it in the comments. And to most of you, you realize this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea for Burlington. It's a bad idea for the neighborhood it'll be sited in. And more importantly, without the emphasis on recovery, and like I said, we already have recovery sites all over the state that are doing good work, that this $1.1 million could be sent to them or split up between VSP and these recovery centers, because VSP obviously needs more officers, and police departments and sheriff's departments around the state obviously need more officers, so that there are a lot of people who could be helped, a lot of departments and agencies that can be helped that are already existing. We don't need to set up another one. So, and the other question I have is, in the event that this site, this place, this is ever cited in actuality, who's going to be showing it? Is there going to be someone showing up there to register voters? Hey, remember us. We got this site for you. Make sure you vote for us. Why? So you could come and shoot up? I don't think so. That's not a good idea. So I just wanted to put that out there. Before I get into the next big article I want to cover, the next big topic, I did hear from Heidi via email, actually 2 emails. One was regarding a road rage case, which I'm hoping some of the legislation we are going to be covering this next session might help with some of the violent crime. I'm hoping. It all depends on whether the number one, you, the listening, voting public, do your part in sending emails and making phone calls to legislators to let the entire legislature know how important public safety is. But there was another one, another article that I was sent regarding the one school. I can't remember. Was it Colchester? I can't remember the school. Sorry, I read the article very quickly. But there was a school that actually raised the Somali flag. Now, why would a school want to do that? Mike, I've got a number of questions. Number one, is the American flag in every one of those classrooms? If not, why not? Number two, do they recite the Pledge of Allegiance in school, in class, every day? If not, why not? So, and the other thing is, are these students, with respect to a lot of things, but not just this issue, are they getting both sides of the story? And unfortunately, I suspect they're not. And that's the biggest concern with me with schools. If we don't fix our schools, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to be able to fix some of the major problems we have, not just in this state, but in the country. So I wanted to cover that and just let our listeners, Heidi and others who've sent emails, thank you very much. Sometimes I don't get to them as often as I should, but I just want to acknowledge that. And there is so much to pay attention to. I think even if I had a 3-hour show, we couldn't cover everything that a lot of you would love to see covered on the show. But I just did want to acknowledge that. The reason I brought up the flag, the American flag, that's one of the main things, one of the few things we have. We have our flag, we have our Pledge of Allegiance, we have the Star-Spangled Banner, and among other things. Those are the glue that keep the country together, in my personal opinion. That and a common language. You can drive from any corner of this country, one corner to the other, zigzag all the way across the country. And although there will be a different dialect of English, or a different twang, if you will, you would still be able to stop no matter where on the road if you needed directions, and be able to get directions from somebody, because we all speak a common language here. Or we hope we still speak a common language here. So the language, the flag, the Pledge of Allegiance, the Star-Spangled Banner, those are things that I would call the glue that helps to keep the country together. We have those things in common, among other things, but those are the glue. There's nothing wrong with having a flag and being happy to fly it. There's nothing wrong with flying a flag, even if you know there are things wrong with the country, but that can be fixed. But the idea of taking a flag and burning it, or stomping on it, or refusing to fly a flag or have a flag in a school because you or somebody you work for believes that the flag represents some sort of bad thing or bad episode in our history, that because there's a bad episode or a bad happening in our country, that the country is automatically, everything about the country is bad. If that was the case, why would we have so many people have come here now that the border is closed? That's harder for people to do. Why would so many have come here illegally? Why come here and people come here legally and go through the process to become naturalized citizens? So I got off on a little bit of a tangent, but as if you can tell, I love and respect our country and our flag and our Star-Spangled Banner and our Pledge of Allegiance, and I hope many of you out there listening do also. The next thing I want to cover is I read from Imprimis last month, and I got a new one, and I think it's something we should cover because, like I said, the Constitution, that's another thing. Both the state of Vermont and the U.S. Constitution, more of the glue that keeps us together. So this one is, let's see, November 2025, Volume 54, Number 11. This one is by Larry Arnn, who is the 12th president of Hillsdale College. Let's see. The first of the contrary winds fueling our national firestorm is Donald Trump, who has closed out his first whirlwind year. Crime is down in several cities where he sent the National Guard. The economy is doing pretty well, and the predictions are that it will continue, decline, or quicken. I think it will fluctuate. The stock market, let's see here, is high, and the range of predictions is the same. Iran and Hamas are weaker, thanks in vital part to Israel, and the cauldron of the Middle East is a little bit cooler. 300,000 fewer people work for the federal government after the number had increased by 240,000 during the Biden administration. Military recruitment and defense spending are up, and Secretary of War Hegseth gave a stirring speech to the military about its purpose, which is to fight. Secretary of State Rubio has given some wonderful speeches about the purpose and manner of American foreign policy, and he and others shuttled around the Middle East at speed to put together a fragile yet promising peace deal. Secretary of Education McMahon has cut the department in half and is after the rest. Secretary of the Interior Burgum is looking for ways to use the land, and Secretary of Energy Wright is looking for energy. Attorney General Bondi seems to know no fear. Vice President Vance frightened the daylight out of Europe, calling for elimination of wokeness and for increased defense spending. A blizzard of executive orders giving deregulatory given regulatory relief, stemmed the tide of DEI and reduced the size and reach of the federal establishment. Shower pressure is up, and you can now take a hot shower under a heavy stream. Pressure is up upon colleges, too, which have been violating civil rights laws systematically. Tariffs are higher here and abroad, and that is still shaking out. The federal debt is rising a bit slower. The border is closed. The Ukraine war is a stubborn disaster. Trump is working on it and asking Europe to pay the bill. The resistance. The other wind blows from the self-described resistance to the elected government, and it's picking up. The No Kings demonstrations have turned out a lot of people, or fewer than a lot, depending on who you talk to. Mamdani is the first self-proclaimed socialist mayor-elect of New York. Oh, let's see. There's a lot of stuff in here, but I want to cover some stuff about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. The solution to all of this, if we will but adopt it, is found in the Declaration. It tells us what we are. It tells us how to govern ourselves. And say what you want about Donald Trump, but it is in fact that he loves the Declaration. He's had an original copy of it installed in the Oval Office and wants the celebration of it to be full-throated. In an extraordinary development, Hillsdale College has joined with the U.S. Department of Education, of all places, and with the White House to help with the celebration. We are making videos in the White House to mark the milestones in the year that led up to July 4, 1776. We are explaining the events and inviting people to read and understand the document. We are paying for all that ourselves. In addition, Hillsdale's online education office in Hillsdale Studios will be releasing 2 documentaries to explain the American Foundation. One on colonial America and one on the Revolution, the latter we hope in theaters first. To commemorate is to remember together. It's a time for us Americans to do that. It's not so hard. The Declaration is 1,350 words long. Its majesty is matched by its pithiness. It contains an entire account of the source, the purpose, and the manner of the government of the United States. In these three things is to be found the solution to our problems. First, the source of our government, the laws of nature and of nature's God. These are the things we know by seeing and thinking about the things around us in nature. The satire from Irena Dunn about the fish and the bicycle and the man and the woman who would not be funny or meaningful except we know by nature what is a fish, what is a bicycle, what is a man, and what is a woman, and we know how they are related or not related. Under these laws of nature, the Declaration says that all men are created equal. Put any common noun in place of man, and the formula still works. For instance, all horses are created equal, all being equally horses. But men are horse and horses are different things. All men, meaning human beings, are equal in being human, which makes them equal in their rights. You can ride a horse. If you are a little boy or girl, you can even ride on the back of your father, but only if your father gives permission. Jefferson, explaining the Declaration shortly before his death on its 50th anniversary, wrote that the mass of mankind has not been born with saddles on their backs, nor a favored few booted and spurred, ready to ride them legitimately by the grace of God. Similarly, in the Lincoln-Douglas debates in 1858, Stephen Douglas asked Abraham Lincoln why a man might take his hog into the free territory of Nebraska and have it protected by law, but not his slave. Lincoln replied that there is no reason at all if the hog and the slave are the same thing. But they are not. Even down in the slave states, they recognize this, which is why they passed laws against teaching slaves to read, but passed no such laws regarding hogs. So, let's see. Understanding these distinctions, we have the restoration of nature itself and of the moral law. recognized repeatedly in the Declaration, that constitutes the rights inherent in our humanity. Here we have the family, property, justice, work, learning, conscience, and worship. Nature is impossible of extinction until the last trumpet sounds, and therefore our rights cannot be extinguished. And we've come to the end of another segment, ladies and gentlemen. We'll finish this up when we get back to the next segment. But this to me is very important. The Declaration of Independence and our Constitution is, the wording in here is what helps save us. You're listening to Right Side Up. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. Before we get back into our discussion of this article from Imprimis, I want to remind everybody, if for some reason you can't catch us on WNTK Radio, go to WNTK.com, scroll down, click on the podcast button. Once you've clicked on the podcast button, you can scroll down and catch or find any of our Right Side Up podcasts, and you can listen to them any time of the day or night. And you're able to share them. You can find us also on Podbean. You can find us on 802 Scoop, 802 Scoop YouTube and Facebook. And you can also find us on granitegrok.com. So, and like I said, I wanted to thank, every once in a while I get an email from a listener, and I'm very thankful for that. And sometimes I forget to mention those, but like I said earlier, thank you very much, Heidi, for shooting me an email regarding some of the things that you've found, and I believe one thing that actually hit pretty close to home for you. So thank you again for keeping us in your list of podcasts and radio shows that you like to listen to. But I want to get back into this article that's in Imprimis, Today's Firestorm and the Declaration, by Larry P. Arnn, Hillsdale College president. Let's see. Nature is impossible of extinction until the last trumpet sounds, and therefore our rights cannot be extinguished. Everything we know through our perception of nature and our understanding of the divine. Next, the purpose of our government. The Declaration describes to what end we are to be governed, namely to protection of our rights, the rights that are written in our nature. This is one of the things, I keep saying it over and over. I have conversations with people. I think I've said it numerous times on the radio. If we do not fix our education system, ladies and gentlemen, and include teaching of our American history and the Declaration and the Constitution of the United States, we're not going to save this country. It's laid out very succinctly. It's very straightforward. And with that, we should be able to right the ship very easily, I think. I attended an event not too long ago up in the State House, and there was mention of democracy, but no mention of constitutional republic. Why is that? These were students. These were high school students. There was plenty of talk about more taxes, but there was no talk about less taxes. And our students don't know the reasons behind why we fought for our freedom, for our liberty. And one of the reasons was taxation, among others. So we need our young people, our students, our kids, to be taught about not just Marxism and socialism and how the state can take care of you. What about capitalism? What has capitalism done for not just this country, but for the world? How many people have come up out of poverty because of capitalism, not because of socialism? How many of our young people, our students, know how many people suffered in poverty and suffered death as a result of socialism and Marxism and communism? I'll bet not very many students know the answer to that question. And that's a sad thing if you ask me. Let's see. These are inherent in man himself, instilled by the Creator himself. What are these rights? To do the things a human being can do by nature: think, work, speak, learn, worship, and defend. Let me go back to here. Speak. Is anybody paying attention what's going on in the UK? People who speak the wrong words are winding up having their smartphones confiscated, and they're wind up getting arrested if they use the wrong speech. Does anybody... I think we need to send a copy of our Bill of Rights over to the UK for everybody to read. That's how scary Europe has become lately. Let's see. To do the things a human being can do by nature: think, work, speak, learn, worship, and defend. We are born able to do these things. We must do them or be diminished. We have a right to them. Finally, the Declaration describes the manner in which we must be governed. Number 1, government must be representative in form. We, the governed, must consent to it. This is entirely natural and right. I can tell you from my experience running a college that young people will put up with most anything if they have consented to it, and almost nothing if they have not. That is human nature. 2, government must be limited. It may only exercise the powers we delegate to it. Our rights are ours by nature, and we delegate authority to the government only on condition that our rights be protected, and only in certain ways. The Constitution, which follows the Declaration by 11 years, but in principle follows it in every way, lays out a government in which local things are managed locally by the people nearest and most affected. Now, I want to break from the article a minute. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, our school system with really, truly local control. We have a system, voucher system. It's one of the oldest in the country, but we've ignored it. If we get back to that, what do you think it would do for our student outcomes? What would you think it would do for our test scores? Would we be back in the top 10% like at one time we were? I think so. Let's see. The federal government has only the specific powers delegated. Today, through a misreading of what is called the Commerce Clause in the Constitution, the federal government regulates everything down to the footpaths in Hillsdale, Michigan. It also has dominance in public finance, which is why the streets are too often unattended and in many cities unpoliced. This is the cost of centralization. Now, I just brought up in a previous segment the issues we have with our own infrastructure, our own transportation sector, where our roads are in dire need, our bridges, our culverts, our ditches are in dire need of better maintenance. This is what the author is talking about. 3, government must act in all dispositive ways through elected representatives. There were to be no permanent officials who make laws so numerous and so complex that we cannot read them. Does it sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen? The unelected bureaucrats that fit this description today are the only ones with kingly powers among our leaders. In a delicious irony, it is they that the No Kings movement sets out to protect from our elected representatives. 4, the powers of government must be divided, not concentrated. In the Declaration, they are united only in the hands of God, the perfect being who appears in the Declaration as the legislature, the laws of nature and of nature's God, the executive, divine providence, and the judiciary, supreme judge of the world. Those powers are not to be combined in human hands. Here in beautiful outline is the basis for our country, the most successful free country in history. Its anniversary is a chance to remember it. So there's more in this article, and I can go into it a little bit, but our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, and I think I've said this numerous times, should be one of the biggest, the most prominent exports we have from this country. Why are we not telling people, advising people how to implement our Constitution, not democracy, our Constitution, make other countries that are suffering, that are trying to throw off tyrants, that are trying to throw off socialism, including the countries to our north and to our south, so that they may become constitutional republics, representative republics, instead of socialist failures. Because socialism eventually is going to fail. It always does. Marxism, socialism. The only difference between the two is how much people suffer before their life is ended. That's the only difference. The people in the socialist countries who prosper are the ones at the top with the most power. Same with communist countries, Marxist. It's just a matter of semantics, really. So why, in this, we're only days away from 2026, which is the year which would be 250 years for the Declaration of Independence and July 4th, 1776. This is what we need to get back to. We need to remember that. We need to read through that. We need to talk to our young people about that. Talk to them about limited government, not expanding government. Like I said to you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I covered it last show, but the event that I went to last, there was a suggestion about a net worth tax on top of all the other taxes we have. And we don't have a net worth tax yet. Hopefully we never do in this country or this state. But why would you, a net worth tax? How I shudder to try to think of how that would be implemented. And the other thing I think of is, what would be the incentive when we have young people talking about what is too much money? How much is too much? That all depends on what you're doing with it, doesn't it? If somebody has $5 million or $10 million or $100 million and they were willing to invest it in a business or an enterprise that's going to give hundreds or thousands of people work, why would you tell someone that they have too much money if there's going to be starting an enterprise that will enable people to make more money, give them stable employment, that in turn would give them the reason and the ability to have stable housing, reliable housing they can afford? Why would we not be talking to our young people about that? And I'm really curious. Are there any teachers out there who are in the listening audience who do have the opportunity to teach these kind of concepts? And I've talked about this before. How many teachers teaching American history or economics, for that matter, teach Thomas Sowell or Milton Friedman or Walter Williams or Ayn Rand or Frederick Hayek? Why not? Why not? Who are we learning? Who are our young people learning? Who are people from our past to look up to, or to read about, to see what, if anything, in their writing pertains to today? This is one of the other reasons why I think the Declaration and the writers and the signers of the Declaration, the level of reading, the level of knowledge they had with respect to what they envisioned our country to be. And the idea that someone can take the fruit of his labor and be able to turn that into a home, a business, an enterprise, grow a family. How is anybody going to be able to grow a family without having a stable job? And why would somebody who doesn't have $5 million but wants a job, why would a person say or think that someone who does have $5 million has too much if the person with $5 million is the one providing someone without $5 million the job. And I don't understand why there aren't more in our schools, whether they be intermediate or high school, who are trying to explain things like that to our students. And I hope that I do hear from some of you so that you are able to tell me that, yes, there are teachers out there who are doing this. So we've come to the end of another show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to wish everyone in the listening audience a very Merry Christmas. I hope, and a safe Christmas. Hopefully you see lots of friends and family and are able to laugh and smile and have a good outlook for the following week, which will be New Year's. So just remember, stay safe, stay informed, listen to Right Side Up.